It's the weekly 30-30 trading list on the ASX. We're reviewing the 30 best momentum companies over the last quarter, and we're looking at the companies that have had the best improvement in their momentum just this week, what we call the launchpad. They're ones that are not yet run, but quite possibly poised to be the next market leaders. Gary Glover has been through both lists of the top 30 from each one and pulled out his favourite charts to dissect with us right now. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, good, Chris. Yourself?
I should say it's afternoon, actually. It's Thursday afternoon, but shake it up for a change. Grand final in Melbourne, so lots of things happening down there this weekend.
No, that's right. No, I still thought get into this slightly earlier than normal, but yeah, had a look at the always sort of try to look for maybe a theme, a leading theme in the new group. Couldn't really sort of see anything outstanding. Probably a bit of a mixed bag there. The one thing I did see through that list was that there's a lot of stocks there that a lot of fund managers like, which reported pretty well, but the price action did not behave very well.
Okay.
So there's some good stocks in there that I think fund managers like, but the price came off on what I thought was some pretty solid results to some of those sort of smaller or mid-cap companies, and they weakened off here, which there's been plenty of those surprises, over reporting season. Pretty mixed bag there, but definitely a few of those companies are there which people did like, which had gone the other way. Maybe they're sort of showing a little change in character here now. So I've had that little bit of a check back. Maybe maybe some traders or some fund managers are looking for a bit more, and they've sort of sold off, but some of those stocks seem to be finding a little bit of support here. Just the few names in there which I recognise. But there, that was really the only theme there. So that might be some good names in there to look at, actually. So yeah,
That quite possibly these are strong industrial companies, good earnings, reported well, didn't perform well. Could be a transition of weak hands moving to stronger hands. And in the context of the greater market that has been falling, if they're coming up in this list, their momentum is relatively higher than most of the market. So could it be that this could be them setting up to be the next leg? If their relative performance is better than the market while it's falling, this could be that transition that you're consistently talking about with the different phases. Is that possibly?
Yeah, that could be it. There's a few in there that I know a few good fund managers do like. So I sort of heard them talk about these companies, sort of surprised their share price went down. So they sort of come off a little bit. Yeah, there's some good little signals there too. But let's go through the quarterly momentum before we get onto the weekly one there. So got a lot of uranium stocks in the list here, Chris, which obviously, which is probably 8 weeks, maybe longer from where we got the
Launchpad signal.
When they hit the launch pad, it's probably roughly 8 weeks ago or something like that, I imagine. So I think it was might have been here early August there when they were when they're flying here. So look, obviously that they've moved up pretty nicely there. I know sort of someone was asking about bullish spacing and stuff there. You can see here deep yellow there. Obviously that was a little swing high. Kind of sat on top of the swing high. I think the next little rally there, when it pulled back, it came back and sat on top of the swing high. I look at candles, I look at the body, and I like to sort of see the body sort of sitting above it, which we did there in that case. And then we sort of pull back and maybe a little bit of spacing in there between the two there.
Just to clarify, you're using the horizontal on the crosshairs there?
Yeah, that's right. So using the So look, I mean, in terms of sitting on and being constructive, I like to sort of sit on the body, which is done here, and then once it starts really accelerating, that's when you're looking for space in that, and the space between the move here. So, this has obviously been a pretty good move here, Chris. The concern here now is that look at that volume profile; it's growing as we're getting further up. So, whereas you want to see this, big impulsive move in there early, maybe a second drive one, and then it starts to sort of fade off, and then towards the end it'll get lighter. or the other profile is that you sort of, run up here, and then, these big volumes there are kind of like distribution. Like when I see too big, we've had a pretty good run here now. And I mean, the other thing, I listen to sort of Ausbiz every day, so it's pretty much been a pretty good signal when maybe sort of 6 out of 8 analysts of the day talk about uranium. I like uranium, or we like uranium, and we've got on board this, a week or two ago or something, So everyone's been talking about uranium the last few days.
Jody, come lately.
Which is not a good sign. So that's a warning bell for me. And the volumes are increasing here after a fairly long run. So that's sort of sign of distribution as well. So, if you're long these things, you'll just be tightening up just on that basis. The price change, you're not giving up anything too far. But the only negative is that, you're seeing that heavy volume there. But I mean, look, this thing's still pretty vertical there. I think EOE is in the list as well. So this is one where we talk about bullish spacing now. I mean, this is one where it's basically that little pullback between the high and this little pullback here. It's less spacing there, so that's really bullish. That's when the trend is taking off. And then again, this is a little peak here, runs through it after having a little bit of pullback here, a little sideways congestion, kicked on again. That's left spacing again, so that's pretty bullish of a trend there. So that's still pretty strong here, even though looking a bit long in the tooth, but that's probably not sort of showing any overriding sort of weakness there so far. I think you've got Bannerman in the list as well. Again, you've got that rising volume there, probably the biggest volume, into this sort of probably spike high here as well. So that's probably you just got this volume profile there. It's sort of run into these highs there. So you look at these things on the weekly. It's always worthy to have a look here. So just had a pretty good run here. That look, maybe they'll have a run or have a bit of a pause and a bit of congestion, and then maybe they can run again. But they look a little hot here, and everyone's talking pretty hot, and the volume is really starting to pick up too. That's just, it's always a bit of a warning sign to me when you see the big volume come in there. So I'd just be tight. If I was long some of those uranium plays, I'll be tightening up my stop here. One or two things will happen here. I'll probably, if I'm right here, it might have a congestion period, or maybe it sort of pulls back here. There's still a lot to be has to be approved there, government-wise before. I guess a lot of these players can really sort of get to the payday, they might say. So there's still some risk there with those things. Number 9 on the list was Lithium Plus, LPM. Thought this was okay here, Chris. It's sort of a little ABC, probably bit of change of character sort of coming out of this, but there was some okay volume here. There's a bit of a gap up, pull back. It's a little thin, a bit messy here. The whole thing is sort of tightening up here, so that still looks okay there. There was a couple of uranium plays on the list there, so a few ones coming in there, some old names on the list as well. So I thought that was okay. I think down the bottom there, LLI was on the list as well. So
Uranium, lithium being well represented in the quarterly momentum.
Yeah, so it's had a little bit of a pop here, a bit of a pullback, some good volume again, pullback on kind of light volume. Had another drive here. This is a pretty good sign here, but it hasn't really gone on. But same token, we haven't really seen a lot of selling here either. So maybe this is just sort of a bigger pause in the trend here. So just wanted to sort of keep an eye on there. LLI, you probably want to see a bit more strength there. I saw someone refer to A11 here as well overnight there. One of my clients sent this through, and I did see someone else online actually sort of talking about it as well, just sort of been building, contracting there. But even that sort of popped up if it didn't really get going there. So kind of, it's a little bit like that at the moment out there. So, I think ELA was the other one in that uranium space there. It's had a pretty hot run. And again, your volume's really, it's just, spiked here as well there. The problem with you've actually got an expanded sort of, top here as well. So you've sort of pulled back, expanded to a new high, big breakdown to a new low, expanded to a new high here. So starting to get that volatility as well, which is always, can be a bit of a negative there. What we got in there? VRX I thought was pretty interesting. This is a pretty strong move here, Chris. Obviously some pretty good volume there. So that all looks, looks a bit long in the tooth here. Looks like it's had a pretty good move. But you look at the last thing on the chart here, that's been pretty solid volume all the way through there.
And the pullback's got nothing to it.
Yeah. So it's had that really, maybe one day here, which is kind of inside day of nothing. Then it goes to a new high. Then you get a tiny bit of selling here. Then it pulls back for 4 or 5 days, and you see no selling at all. So literally, there's 5 days in there of a pullback, and no one's getting nervous about holding the stock. They're holding it tight. So, and then we got 1 day up here, and we've kicked on there. So that's actually still pretty robust. So this is where sort of, where the leader is pretty strong here. Sort of, I know it's sort of broken just below that 20-day. Probably prefer them to hug them here, but I think this one's, in the past there, it's chopped in between them, a few times there. So doesn't have a history of holding the 20. Does have a history of sort of chopping around. STK I thought was okay. It's some okay volume through there. Is sort of breaking up to new highs there. It's a bit of a choppy sort of stock here, but this is interesting here because this is sort of quite a corrective sort of decline. It took a long time here, and now we're sort of starting to break out to new highs. It's a little small here, but this is not bad here. It's not bad here. So that's Strickland Metals STK. I don't mind the look of that. So probably just being a bit small is probably the only issue there. NTD National Tires there. Look, this is okay. It's had a pretty hot run. Had that big spike here, which can be a little bit exhaustive when you see that, those sort of big spikes there. But again, we've had a few days down here. Not a lot of selling in here so far. So just a hard one there, just because it's pretty choppy, sort of messy sort of stock here. The other one I thought was pretty interesting was AIQ, which is like an AI sort of kind of medical sort of stock here. So interesting here. Just this is sort of like pulled back here, gone congested there. Bit of volume on this drive. Tiny bit of volume late in this drive here, but then it's all dried up here. What you saw is basically no volume in here. It's just sort of started to kick along here with some volume, kick up out of the range. Yes, that doesn't look too bad to me. It looks, the weekly is a little messy. You're not seeing the, not seeing the super aggressive volume on this leg here. So look, not seeing big volume through there as well. So, it's a tricky market at the moment here. Just not, in a really aggressive market there, that'd be a pretty good signal. But in this market here, it's probably only this type of one that's failing a lot. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that. You're seeing sort of the volume's okay without being brilliant, I guess, if I'm trying to say that.
Like what you and I were saying off air before we started recording, it's the last couple of weeks, we're not really seeing strong thematic signals. We're not seeing huge momentum scores concentrated within a thematic. And we're seeing the sectors rank highly from a theme perspective, which kind of tells us that we're not getting concentrated signals. We're getting quite low signals from the market. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. I mean, I just think of about like AX1 is a pretty good company here. It's sort of come back here, congested, nice and tight, sat on top of the 50 volumes drive. It looks pretty good here, but look how slow this is to sort of come out of the, it's just the volumes are like in previous bull moves here, you would have come back to the 50, found support here, and then bang, you'd be getting a pivot day here with volume here. And we're just not seeing any, this looks okay here, but there's no conviction in the buying. So it's like Groundhog Day. It's really sort of slow moving. It's just, even some of the, this, I think this looks quite good here, but even the best signals are taking a long time, and I really get going, So, just seeing plenty of like that where it's just sort of slow moving, overall there. So, I saw, EML's had a bit of a move here, but the volumes are pretty light. You're fighting the sort of, it's the old leader. Always important to look at the weekly chart because that'll put the whole thing in context as well, as to what you're fighting against there. So, the odds are sort of stacked against EML, just because there's so many losers in the past there. Holding this one back here. That was it for the
Quarterly momentum.
For the quarterly there. So there's a couple in there to look at there. Definitely thought the BRX was a look there. LLI, okay. And just keep an eye on some of those lithium names as well. But the volumes aren't super strong there. I think Cesar was number one here. Sorry. Again, that's pretty choppy here. It's had a bit of a pop, and then now it's sort of edged off here. Some old names on the list there, like WCA, which it's sort of held up pretty well here. It's done, not mistaken, it's sort of done its raising as well here. So I don't know, I'll be a bit suspicious of that one's had a pretty good run. It's already overbalanced the trend for me. It's probably for me it's sort of time to leave it alone. I thought SVL is interesting there, just sort of held up there. It's a small sort of silver mine. Still watching that sort of gold and silver. So the gold has weakened off here, but there's still a big VCP on the spot gold chart. So I'm just watching that still. Some of the gold stocks have actually pulled back to near lows there, and some of them have held up really well. It's a really mixed there. I did buy a couple of gold stocks there. I think I'm sort of got stopped out of one. I'm still holding one, which is probably around flat, and the other ones have gone up here. So it's just the whole sector's really mixed. So LPI was one that sort of popped up here, Lithium Power. So just had a bit of a pop on volume there. Probably a little small here, but maybe one to keep an eye on. RUL that's RPM Global there. So this is one that sort of did, this is one I was referring to, sort of did report pretty well. A lot of fund managers do like this sort of pretty reasonable sort of growth in that sort of mid-cap sort of space here. But it has come back here. So look, just interesting it's sort of holding up here. No technical pattern there which is jumping out at me, but it's just interesting that it's sort of held up here post the list as well. It might have been SKO. There's another small one here with this one has sort of pushed on. Very good name, like TUA. Again, a few fund managers do like it. It's just going back to retest the high here. So that's possibly a big cover handle there, Chris, but the handle's a little small. I'd probably like to sort of see it use up a bit more time, sort of cut back.
Cup and handle and a cup and handle if we have a look at the weekly as well.
This one's obviously sort of David Teo sort of So I mean, look, interesting. I guess I got some. Yeah.
The best cup and handle I've ever seen on the ASX is Magellan MFG, which was at $2. That's that goes down in my records. If you have a look at on the monthly, back at $2. There was a cup and handle inside a cup and handle. Back at $2.
Okay, I can't go back there.
Yeah, but I always use that when I find a cup and handle. That's the one that I reference back to. Anyway, what's the next one on your?
The other one's Parenti, which again is a sort of kind of emerging mining services operator. I know a few guys like this as well in the fund manager space. It kind of got hit pretty hard here. I thought it reported okay, but obviously the market was after a bit more. But it has come back and retested the low here. So it's sort of come back and retest. I don't like them sort of come back too fast, but now it's sort of bounced here and come back. What I do like is that there's a bit of volume started to come in here. We saw volume sort of hit the low here as well. A bit exhaustive. Bit choppy in here, but a bit of volume there. So that's interesting space there. But that's a sort of large sort of square, sort of sideways orientated correction as well. So this really is just sort of, this is our impulsive move. This is our corrected. It's sort of gone sideways. It's almost like a little triple bottom in here as well. So it's not bad volume there. So this is definitely one to sort of keep an eye on here. Just because I know good fun now, few funders do think the stocks, and I know it's basically that it's got pretty strong filters there in terms of revenue and profit wise as well. So
would that be a spring there? Just after it retested under $1 more recently, come down and retest that low. It attempted to close lower, but was unable to close lower for 3 consecutive days.
Yeah, you get a bit of a spring there. Actually, one of the best springs I saw recently, which if you study Wyckoff and you look at the Wyckoff accumulation schematic number 1, where you sort of trend down, you bounce around off the low, then you basically punch through it, and then this is the point here. Is this is a new downtrend emerging, or is this basically a spring where you can basically turn here? So this is at this is really pivotal point here, because if I look at that sort of Wyckoff schematic, that tells me here that this could be a key low here. We're sort of seeing a bit of volume here so far as well. But drill into the daily, definitely been pretty volatile here. Some okay volume days as well. So I just definitely want to sort of keep an eye on there. All these property trusts have been hammered, Chris. They've been in a downtrend for 2 years. So is that downtrend going to continue for another year? And there's some names that have been buried. There's some big moves in those property trusts as well. So saw a little bit of bit of price action, bit of volume starting to take place in some of those REITs as well. So I'm kind of waiting for them to pop in the weekly. We might get 4 or 5 of them pop up there 1 week. Wouldn't sort of touch until I see a bit more there. But just interesting there that this mentioning sort of price patterns there. It's a sector which has been hit pretty hard there. What else we got there? EIQ is in the list there. That was obviously the one that I mentioned there. It's got the little VCP coming out of it, but the volume's okay. VUK, which is third. So I actually don't mind this, even though the price action looks a little weak here. We're under the 50-day moving average there, but
you're also getting a coil at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, but there is a bit of a VCP and it's holding sort of tight here so far. Did see some volume come in the last couple of weeks off that low, which I thought was sort of interesting there, because the whole thing's sort of fully underneath there. So definitely one to sort of keep an eye on there. But yeah, it's just, you want to see above. I like to see above the 50-day. I'm sort of really trying to sort of be a little tougher on my calls with the market being a bit tough here. Trying to really lift the standard of my trades here. So trying to make sure that set up
maybe all the criteria that you want to have.
Yeah, so I've got my little trade journal here. Sort of got my playbook, which has kind of got, before I take the trade, I've sort of got to look at the risk reward, got to look at the label characteristics, sort of make sure it meets a lot of my criteria, so just trying to make sure I take a lot of A class sort of setups here. So if it looks like a B or something like that, or really trying to make sort of A or A plus here sort of setups here. I mean, the volume is probably the one thing you're not seeing too many sort of A plus, because we're not seeing big volume, all those sort of pivot point sort of days there. But we're seeing some good setups, some VCPs, some the volume congest there. You're just not seeing that. I think some of them come out they're just coming out slowly. So really choppy, sort of slow moving. So and such a little bit there. So I think I mentioned that AX1. I mean things like BBN. Look at that. That's a VCP. The whole thing's tightening up here, but it's taking an eternity. So this is happening all over the market there. I just see everything's just taking a long time. Even saw think, Ramsey's got a little VCP in there, Chris, a little
Yeah, I can see that.
lighting up, a little ascending triangle there. So that looks kind of interesting. It is under the 50-day moving average. That's the only negative there. So that sort of wasn't sort of quite. I see the 360 is the whole thing's tightened up there. Just come back and hit the 50 today. This is sort of one of the leading stocks there. The only thing I didn't like, I did break this low here marginally by a few cents. When I look back at in the past, they're just the strongest stocks there. They just don't tend to break this one low. So they just tend to keep holding. They don't, I know it sounds like it's just a little minor one, but when you study the strongest stocks here, they just generally don't, very, very rarely break minor lows. They just keep making high lows. So I thought, that was looking okay until today. MP1 sort of holding tight. It's sort of over that 50 as well. Doing okay there, but not really kicking on. Giro is probably the other leader there. It's sort of kind of squaring off here a little bit. It's probably going through a bit of a consolidation phase, so it's probably one not to touch here at the moment. But yeah, just looking at some of those leaders in the past there, some of the big names, they're sort of still sort of trading up here. So that market's still looking for a little bit of direction there. We've held the sort of equinox low, so we've got an equinox turn the other day, and since then we've had probably 3 or 4 tight days here so far. That was a good volume day in the market, and these are probably some lighter days here. So oftentimes you get these sort of, you can get a few congestion days and then you move up here. So far it's okay, it's holding on here, but it really does need to sort of have a good breakout day in the next probably 2 days to sort of confirm that low there. But it's pretty choppy out there, so we just got to keep trading, keep it tight. Yeah.
Well, you've given us a lot of charts to look at, some good breakdowns of understanding fundamentals, fundamental support, institutional support coming in for some of these companies that are showing up a relative strength and performance. Are there any quotes or words of wisdom that you could leave us with for the weekend?
Yeah, I was listening to a little bit of Larry. I managed to get a hold of an audio book, the original Market Wizards, which was like Richard Dennis, Paul Tudor Jones, Larry Hyde. It was the host of the old trading. It was actually quite good. Probably shorter interviews than the most recent ones, but I love some of Larry's quotes. There was he's got 2 basic rules about trading and actually about life. If you don't bet, you can't win. If you lose all your chips, you can't bet. Sounds pretty basic, but there's a lot to unpack in what Larry's saying there. And, he talks about there are four kinds of bets. There are good bets, bad bets, bets that you can win, and bets that you can lose. Winning a bad bet can be the worst outcome of all. If we've been trading, you know exactly what we're talking about. If we've been trading for a while there, because sometimes you place that bad bet and you'll win. That's
confidence.
Yeah, it's a bad bad habits that sort of will creep into your trading there. So if you keep placing good bets over time, the law of averages will work out for you in the long run. So that's the most important principle there. What Larry's trying to say there.
Which I guess is why you've got that to your right. That checklist that you're running through on each trade to make sure the law of averages are in your favour each time you place a trade.
Yeah, trying to do law of averages, trying to basically make sure I, tick a few boxes. I don't rush into trading. That's sort of probably the first thing. And then the second thing is I'm reviewing every trade that Chris as well. So actually going through, putting in the trade details, the amounts. So I can look at sort of how I trade into it and how, and I like to scale into positions as well. So I've sort of got 8 or 10 boxes there. So potentially I might go, 5, 5, 5, 5, or I might go 10, 5, 5, so into my scalar position. And then if I get stopped out, I'll target, I'll ease my way out of it as well. But then I'm kind of reviewing the trade as well so that I can look at what I did right, what was good, what was wrong, how I can improve and stuff like that. It's really, really important with trading. It's the one thing most traders don't do is go back and review their trading. And I can tell you that if you make a point of doing a good review every sort of 3 months or 6 months or 12 months there, it can be really revealing as to what's obvious, what's maybe not obvious in the short term cluster of trading. You can sort of sit back, go through your trading for 6 months, and you know, there'll be some clear things in there that you're doing wrong, you can improve on, and you can make some clear adjustments there, which will improve your trading by a big amount. You can go back and read and all these other things, but just reviewing your trades in detail there is probably one of the, I'd say probably only 10% of traders do it, and probably half of those are probably the most successful traders.
That's where the leaders, the trading leaders come from, is that cohort that are consistently reviewing their trades.
Yeah.
And every good book that we read from a trader over the last 100 years, they've all done it. They all go back. They all learn from their own mistakes, because it's like reading a trading book specifically written for them. It's where they need to focus. So that's a good point. If it's not trading right now and the trades aren't coming to you, maybe it's a weekend to sit down and review the trading diary.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like the human nature as well. You know, the bad habits and good habits sort of sneak in there, and sometimes we don't know that. You know, sometimes a little bit subconscious, but doing the review, can reveal a couple of things there, so you can make some really clean adjustments there. That
sounds like the weekend homework ahead. So
yeah, I mean, one of the biggest reviews I ever did, Chris, was about 2.5 years ago, and I basically went back and reviewed almost 18 months to sort of 2 years of my previous trading, and I went through really in quite a large detail, and it was quite humbling for me at the time. It was a big exercise, and it was I was almost embarrassed going through my trades, just how often I was just so loose. But it was the best thing for me. I've since that day, since I was sort of probably reviewed it over a couple of weeks, because there's so many trades I did over a couple of years. But from that point on, since 2.5 years ago,
trading improved sensationally from that point.
Yeah, it's improved maybe 4 or 5-fold at least.
Well, if that's not enough of an incentive to go back and review your trades, then I don't know what is to be improving that much. So that's a great success story. And I remember we've been doing this podcast for a better part of 8 years, I think. And I remember when you were going through that research at the time, and then you came out the other end, you'd refined your process, and then you just sort of never looked back. Your trading just got better and better and better, and kept reviewing. So I guess the proof is in 8 years of podcast.
Yeah, I had a good couple of years there. Probably just this last sort of quarter there is probably a bit of the flat zone for me. So good chance for me to sort of bring in some extra tools around that reviewing, and to keep that review going there. So I feel like I just need to sort of just tighten up a little bit there. Sort of, just every now and again you'll sort of be a few trades in there you haven't tightened up. There's a couple there that I probably went in a bit hard. Couple there left my stop behind a little bit, getting myself too much room, just things like that, So you're just got to keep improving there every day. Just got to keep getting better. You sort of, if you're resting your laurels there, you'll get sorted out here. We're just, there's a reason why you're sort of like, life's like riding a bike here. If we're not sort of moving forward, we're going to be falling over here. So we got to keep moving forward with our trading here, keep improving, take even small steps there, small movements forward. Be enough to sort of keep the bike rolling forward.
Well, to that point, we'll take that insight into the weekend and say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
Gary's mentioned his trading and his insights. On Tuesdays, he goes through his weekly report in detail. That playlist is on the right. Also below that is insights into trading setups, patterns, and trading methodology. It's on the right, and his X, or his Twitter handle, is over there on the left.